The Galactic Council was the greatest ruling body in the universe. For thousands of years, they had brought peace, order, and control to the countless species of the galaxy. Every planet that reached the stars, every species that proved itself worthy, was given a seat in the Grand Chamber. It was an honor beyond measure, a sign that a species had joined the great galactic community. And yet, one seat remained empty. It had been there for over 300 years, untouched, unused. The large chair made of polished metal, placed in the center row of the council chamber. It was not abandoned. It was not forgotten. It was simply left alone. No one spoke of it. No one asked about it. It was as if the seat itself was cursed. Most council members ignored it. Newer species, those who had joined in the last few centuries, didn't even know why it was there. But the older members, the ones who had ruled for centuries, knew the truth, and they feared it. One day, a new species was accepted into the council. The Xelvari were a curious race, small and insect-like, but highly intelligent. Their ambassador, Varkesh, was eager to learn about the council's history. He spent weeks studying records, understanding the politics of the great ruling body. But the more he learned, the more confused he became. One question bothered him. Whose seat is that? The question was simple, and yet, when he asked it, the entire council chamber went silent. Dozens of alien leaders, powerful beings who controlled entire sectors of space, stared at him. Some looked surprised. Others looked afraid. The Supreme Chancellor, an ancient being with glowing silver skin, leaned forward. His expression was unreadable. That seat does not concern you. Varkesh hesitated. The Chancellor's tone was firm, almost threatening. But the ambassador was not easily intimidated. Every species in the council has a seat, he said carefully. Yet that one has remained empty for centuries. Who does it belong to? A deep, heavy silence filled the room. Finally, an elder member spoke, his voice a whisper. It belongs to Earth. Varkesh frowned. He had studied every species in the council, but he had never heard of Earth. Earth? He repeated. Where is it? The elder did not answer. The Chancellor sighed. His silver eyes gleamed with something unreadable. Earth is not a matter for discussion. Varkesh narrowed his eyes. Then why does it have a seat? The Chancellor's expression darkened. That will be the last question you ask on this topic. It was not a suggestion. It was a warning. Varkesh fell silent, but inside, his curiosity burned. Why was the council afraid? Why did they refuse to speak of Earth? He had to know the truth. That night, Varkesh accessed the galactic archives, searching for any mention of Earth. He scanned through records, histories, first contact reports. But something was strange. There were no records of Earth ever being invited to the council. No reports of first contact. No evidence of diplomatic missions. It was as if Earth had never been discovered at all. But that didn't make sense. The council monitored every planet capable of space travel. They guided young species, watched their progress, and when the time was right, extended an invitation. That was the way it had always been. So why was Earth different? Varkesh searched deeper, accessing restricted files. Finally, he found something. A classified report from 300 years ago. A mission to a newly discovered death world. A planet with intelligent life. A planet called Earth. He opened the report. The first few pages were standard observations. Earth was a high-gravity world. Harsh weather. Dangerous predators. But then, the tone changed. The scientists who studied the planet began to write strange things. Unexplainable events. Creatures watching us from the shadows. Something is wrong here. The final entry was the most chilling. We should not be here. We should have never come. They are watching. They know. We must leave before. The message cut off. The file ended there. No conclusion. No follow-up. Varkesh's mandibles clicked in unease. What happened to the research team? Where did they go? Why was there no official record of Earth after this mission? He checked the ship logs. The research vessel that had gone to Earth had simply vanished. No wreckage, no distress calls, no survivors. It was as if the ship had been erased from existence. The next day, Varkesh returned to the council chamber. He stood before the Supreme Chancellor, his mind racing with what he had discovered. "I know the truth," he said. "The council did discover Earth. You sent a team, and they never returned." The Chancellor's face remained calm, but the room had grown colder. "I told you not to ask about Earth," the Chancellor said quietly. Varkesh did not back down. "What happened to them? What happened to the ship?" The Chancellor's silver eyes locked onto his. They were warned. Varkesh's heart pounded. By who? The Chancellor exhaled slowly. By Earth. The words sent a chill through the room. Varkesh's mind raced. "You mean the humans?" "No." The Chancellor's voice was barely a whisper. "Not just the humans." Varkesh frowned. "Then what?" The Chancellor leaned forward. His voice was filled with something ancient, something haunted. Earth itself. A cold dread settled over Varkesh. The seat in the council chamber was not empty because humanity had refused. It was empty because Earth had made it so. And the council feared the day it would no longer be empty. Varkesh had spent years studying different species, learning about their cultures and histories. He had seen planets ruled by logic, others ruled by war. He had witnessed civilizations rise and fall. But never had he seen an entire council afraid of a single world. The Supreme Chancellor's words echoed in his mind. Earth itself. The way he had said it sent a deep, uneasy feeling into Varkesh's very core. He had expected an answer, maybe about a dangerous species, a warlike race, or a planet that had been destroyed. But this was something else. The empty seat was not a mistake. It was not forgotten. It was left untouched on purpose. Varkesh couldn't let it go. He had to know more. That night, he went deeper into the galactic archives, using his private access codes to search beyond the restricted files. It was dangerous. Breaking into secured records could have serious consequences. But his instincts told him something big was being hidden. At first, he found nothing new. The same missing reports, the same lost research team. But then, he noticed something strange. There was one more document linked to Earth, buried under layers of classified encryption, a report that had been erased from public records. Varkesh bypassed the security and opened the file. What he saw shook him to his core. It was not just one ship that had disappeared. It was 5. Over the course of 300 years, 5 separate missions had been sent to Earth. None had returned. Each mission had been led by a different species. Some had gone as peaceful observers. Others had gone as conquerors. But the result was always the same. Silence. No signals. No wreckage. No survivors. Each time, the council had covered it up, erased the records, pretended those ships had never existed. And yet, the empty seat remained, as a silent reminder of something the council dared not speak of. Varkesh's mandibles clicked in fear. What was on that planet? What could erase an entire crew without leaving a single trace? His heart pounded as he scrolled further. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. A message. The only transmission ever received from a ship that had gone to Earth. It was heavily damaged, fragmented, barely understandable. But the words were still there. The voice was panicked, filled with terror. "We thought they were primitive. We were wrong. Static. The planet is watching us. It knows we're here." More static. "We are not alone. We never were. Something is here." The message ended. Varkesh felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He had seen war. He had seen genocide. But this was different. Something about Earth was not natural. And the worst part, the council knew. They had known for centuries. and they were terrified of the day Earth would finally take its seat. Varkesh's claws trembled as he shut down the screen. The words from the damaged transmission echoed in his mind. We thought they were primitive. We were wrong. His instincts screamed at him to stop, to forget what he had seen, to walk away. But he couldn't. Not now. Earth was not just some forgotten world. The Council feared it, and anything that made the Council afraid was worth investigating. He had to know more. The next day, he moved cautiously through the Grand Council chambers. If anyone realized what he had discovered, he might never leave this station alive. The Council was powerful, too powerful. They did not allow secrets to escape. He needed to find someone who knew the truth, someone who had been here long enough to remember what happened. His best chance was Ambassador Relka, an elder member of the Council. She had served for over 3 centuries, longer than most living beings in the galaxy. If anyone knew what Earth truly was, it was her. He found her in the Hall of Records, standing silently before the empty seat. The way she looked at it, there was something deeply unsettling in her expression. Not just fear, not just caution. Regret. Varkesh approached carefully. Ambassador Relka, he said, lowering his head in respect. She turned, her aged eyes scanning him. You have been searching, she said quietly. You should stop. Varkesh hesitated. I need to know the truth. About Earth. Relka sighed, closing her eyes for a long moment. You are not the first to ask, and you will not be the last. But if you do not stop now, you may not live to ask again. That only made Varkesh more determined. I found the records, he pressed. The missing ships. The erased files. I heard the transmission. You all fear Earth, but why? Relka's shoulders stiffened. She was silent for a long time before she finally spoke. You should not have looked. Varkesh waited, his heart pounding. 300 years ago, when the Council was still young, we found Earth, she began. It was a primitive world. Or so we thought. Its people had no interstellar travel, no galactic presence. By our standards, they were nothing. Her voice grew heavy. But we did not understand what we were looking at. We saw their wars and thought them barbaric. We saw their lack of unity and thought them weak. We did not see the truth. Varkesh swallowed. What truth? Relka looked at him, her eyes filled with something he had never seen before. Dread. Earth is not just a planet, she whispered. It is a test, a cage, a battlefield. We did not find Earth, Varkesh. It was left alone for a reason. A chill ran down his spine. You mean something is keeping them there? He asked. Relka shook her head. No, something is keeping us out. Varkesh felt his breath catch. Relka turned back to the empty seat. We did not invite Earth to the Council. We could not choose to leave that seat empty. It is their choice. Varkesh was struggling to process what she was saying. But why? Why would they refuse a seat in the Council? Relka's voice was barely a whisper now. Because the day Earth takes its seat. She turned to him, eyes dark and filled with warning. Is the day the galaxy changes forever. Varkesh's mind raced as he left the Hall of Records. Every step felt heavier. Every breath felt harder. Earth was not just some forgotten world. It was waiting. And the Council was afraid of what would happen when that wait ended. The pieces were starting to come together, but something was still missing. Why? What made Earth so dangerous that the most powerful species in the galaxy chose to ignore it? Relka's words haunted him. Something is keeping us out. The more he thought about it, the more it made sense. The Council didn't fear Earth because of its weapons or technology. They feared it because of something else. Something worse. He needed answers, but he was running out of time. Digging into restricted records was one thing. Speaking with a high-ranking council member was another. If the wrong people found out what he was searching for, he wouldn't live long enough to regret it. There was only one place left to go. The silent archives. A hidden vault buried deep beneath the Galactic Council's main station. It held records so dangerous that even speaking of them was a crime. Only a few knew of its existence, and even fewer had ever entered. Varkesh had no clearance to access it, but he didn't need clearance. He needed desperation, and that he had plenty of. The security was tight, too tight. The Council would rather erase history than let someone discover the truth. But Varkesh had studied the station's security long before this day. He knew the blind spots, he knew the gaps, and he knew how to disappear when needed. Moving carefully, he bypassed the biometric scanners, dodged the motion sensors, and slipped past the automated guards. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. It was as if the station itself did not want him there. At last, he reached the final door. It was locked by ancient security codes, the kind that only Council elders possessed. But someone had accessed this place before, and they had left something behind. A single message flashing on the screen. If you have come this far, then you already know the answer. Varkesh hesitated. His claws hovered over the controls. Then, the door unlocked on its own. A deep, heavy silence filled the air as he stepped inside. The room was small, almost empty. Only a single data terminal sat in the center. Varkesh approached slowly, his heart pounding. He activated the terminal. A single file appeared. It had no name, no description, just a date. The year the Council first discovered Earth. He opened it. A video played. At first, there was only static. Then, a blurry image appeared. A ship's command deck, filled with high-ranking officers from different species. They were arguing, shouting. Some looked angry. Others looked terrified. A voice broke through the noise. "We have made a mistake." The camera turned to a figure, an old, weary council member. His eyes were hollow, his hands shaking. "We thought we were the first to find Earth." He swallowed hard. "We were wrong." Varkesh leaned forward, his breath shallow. The man's voice trembled as he continued. "We intercepted an ancient signal, a warning, left by those who came before us." Varkesh's claws dug into the terminal. The message was simple, one sentence. The screen flickered. The image cut to a transmission log. A single line of text appeared. Words that had been sent across time itself. Words from a species that no longer existed. "Do not approach Earth. Do not disturb what sleeps beneath." The video ended. Varkesh stepped back, his blood running cold. Something was on Earth. Something ancient. Something that had been there long before the Council. And the galaxy had spent centuries pretending it did not exist. Varkesh stood frozen in front of the terminal. His mind screamed at him to move, to breathe, to do something. But he couldn't. The warning was clear. Do not disturb what sleeps beneath. Who had sent that message? What did they mean? And more importantly, were they still alive? Varkesh forced himself to think. The Council had buried this information for centuries. They knew something so dangerous that they had erased all traces of it. He had to dig deeper. His claws hovered over the terminal, searching for more files. But before he could act, the screen flickered again. A new message appeared. Access DTCTD. Security ALERT Act. Hated. Varkesh cursed. He had triggered an alarm. Heavy footsteps echoed from above. The station's elite guards were coming. He had seconds to escape. Varkesh shut down the terminal and sprinted toward the exit. The silent archives were deep within the station, with only one way in or out. He had prepared for this, but now he had to act fast. The corridor outside was empty. For now. But he could already hear the sound of weapons charging. He darted through the halls, staying in the shadows. One wrong move, and it was over. A door ahead led to a maintenance shaft. It was his only chance. Just as he reached it, the lights turned red. A robotic voice boomed through the station. "Intruder detected. All personnel engage." Varkesh didn't hesitate. He yanked the shaft open and dove inside. The passage was narrow, barely enough room for his body. He crawled fast, his heart pounding. Then, gunfire. The wall behind him exploded. They had found him. He moved as fast as he could. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading deeper into the station's hidden passages. A sharp turn, a narrow drop. He barely managed to grip the edge before falling into darkness. His arms burned, his breath ragged. But there was no time to stop. He pulled himself up and kept moving. Another explosion rocked the tunnel. The guards were not holding back. They wanted him dead. He reached the end of the shaft and kicked the panel open. Cold air hit his face. The docking bay. Several ships were docked, ready to depart. If he could reach one. A warning shot struck the floor near his feet. He spun around. 4 guards stood behind him, weapons raised. Their leader, a towering reptilian warrior, stepped forward. You should not have seen that. Varkesh's mind raced. He was unarmed, outnumbered. There was only one option left. A cargo shuttle was preparing to take off. Its engines roared as the crew finished loading supplies. Varkesh's eyes locked onto it. A chance. Without thinking, he bolted. The guards fired. The shots barely missed. He pushed harder, his body screaming in protest. The shuttle's ramp was closing. If he didn't reach it in time. A sharp pain tore through his shoulder. A plasma shot grazed him. He jumped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, impact. He crashed onto the shuttle's floor just as the ramp sealed shut. The ship lifted off, leaving the station behind. Varkesh lay there, gasping for breath. He had escaped. But now, the real question remained. Where would he go next? And more importantly, who could he trust? Varkesh sat in the dark cargo hold, clutching his wounded shoulder. The pain was sharp, but he had no time to rest. He had escaped the station, but the real danger was only beginning. The shuttle was heading toward a neutral trading post, a place where smugglers, mercenaries, and spies did their business. It wasn't safe, but right now, it was his best option. He needed to find someone who could decode the rest of the files he had stolen. The warning about Earth was still fresh in his mind. Do not disturb what sleeps beneath. What was beneath Earth? And why had the Council been so afraid of it? He needed answers. As the shuttle landed, Varkesh pulled his hood up, hiding his face. He slipped into the crowd, blending with merchants and travelers. The trading post was chaotic. Bright lights, strange smells, voices in dozens of languages. It was the perfect place to disappear. But he wasn't alone. He could feel someone watching him. Years of experience told him to keep moving. He turned down a narrow alley, passing shady vendors selling illegal tech. He wasn't looking for weapons. He needed a codebreaker, someone who could unlock the secrets in his stolen files. A name came to his mind. Doran Kale, a rogue AI specialist. Brilliant, unpredictable, and dangerous. If anyone could help him, it was Kale. He found Kale in a dimly lit workshop filled with old machines and blinking monitors. The human was tall, thin, and had cybernetic implants running across his arms. Kale smirked when he saw Varkesh. Well, if it isn't the Council's pet scientist, what brings you to my little corner of the galaxy? Varkesh didn't waste time. I need this decrypted. He placed the stolen data chip on the table. Kal's eyes flickered with interest. Stolen files. Risky business. He picked up the chip and connected it to his terminal. The screen filled with symbols and encrypted messages. Kal's smirk faded. Then he froze. His face went pale. His fingers trembled over the keyboard. Varkesh stepped forward. What is it? Kale turned slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. You have no idea what you just found. Varkesh's stomach tightened. Tell me. Kale exhaled sharply. This isn't just a warning. It's a cover-up. The Galactic Council didn't just fear Earth. They lied about it. Varkesh felt a chill run through him. Lied about what? Kale hesitated. Then he pressed a few keys, and the screen changed. A new message appeared. Project EEXIL. Earth's True History. Varkesh's breath caught. Earth wasn't just another planet. It was something far more dangerous. Varkesh stared at the screen, his heart pounding. Project Exile. Earth's True History. The words alone sent a wave of unease through him. Kel's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He glanced at Varkesh. You sure you want to see this? Varkesh didn't hesitate. Show me. Kale pressed a key. The screen flickered. And then, the truth was revealed. Thousands of years ago, Earth had not been a forgotten world. It had been the center of an ancient galactic empire, the most powerful force the universe had ever known. Humans were not a weak, primitive species. They were the rulers of the stars. Their technology was unmatched. Their armies were unstoppable. But something had gone wrong. A war so devastating that even the Council feared speaking of it. Earth's empire had collapsed. The survivors had been exiled, their memories erased, their history buried. The Council had rewritten everything, turning Earth into nothing more than a backwater planet. But there was one problem. Earth never truly fell. Kale scrolled further. His face was pale. They tried to erase them. But humans, they don't die easy. Varkesh's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Kale pointed at the screen. The Council thought they had destroyed Earth's leaders, wiped out their warriors. But they didn't. Varkesh's blood ran cold. Then where are they? Kale swallowed hard. They're still here, waiting, hidden, watching. The files spoke of an ancient defense protocol, a last command issued before Earth's fall. If the galaxy ever turns against us again, we will return. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise. Varkesh felt his breath shake. The empty seat at the Council chamber, the warnings, the fear. The Council knew. They always knew. And they were terrified. Because one day, Earth would rise again.